The reason most people creating short form content waste months, sometimes years of their life not seeing much progress is not because they can't write the perfect hook, keep up with trends, or pump out dozens of videos a day. It's because they don't actually know why they're posting. And once you see the other perspectives I've formed over the years, you realize how simple the game really is. And by the end, you'll know the exact launch philosophy I use to grow pages to hundreds of thousands of followers. You'll know the repeatable structure behind every great short form video and how I abuse it. And you'll get better faster by doing the one thing I still do every day that keeps my skill sharp. So starting off, when most creators or brands start short form, even me back in 2020 when I wanted to be a streamer, they post blindly onto the platform, copying the first trend they see and doing anything in the hopes for views. Sometimes you get views, sometimes you don't, and it feels like progress when you do because you can see the number go up. But I believe chasing views without a destination is simply a waste of your time. You have to ask yourself why you want the views in the first place. Is it to sell a product? Is it purely for creative expression? Is it to build a body of work to get clients? Is it just for entertainment? For example, when we started working with FaZe Vegas, a professional Call of Duty team, the goal of the pages were to 1. Increase affinity towards the brand, sell the in-game product, and have an audience we could access to promote events and products to. And knowing those goals helped determine content styles, cadence, and branding throughout the year. So instead of chasing views for the sake of views, you chase an outcome instead. A specific thing you want your page to be and do, which then makes the pursuit of views a targeted journey. You do this because it's much easier to work backwards from an end goal than the other way around. But knowing the why is just step 1, and the second is arguably the most important step on your journey. Now, after I really spent time in this space, knowing who you're creating for at the level I'm about to explain is going to be the difference between a video that gets watched and pushes you closer to your goal and one that just scrapes by 1,000 views. For example, we can actually do this live because I found a really cool company called Wand, and I'll assume their target demo is 18 to 35-year-old PC gamers because their software allows gamers to mod their single-player games on the fly. Now, with that single identifier, you can't really do much unless you go a layer deeper, which is where I like to live. I ask questions like, where does this person spend their time? What do they really care about? What do they want out of their life? What kind of things are they loyal to? What you're looking for is identity. The moment you find their identity, you realize a whole world comes attached. And their world has something I like to call an attention freeway, which consists of lanes of content your perfect viewer, customer, or user cruise down naturally. In this case, potential Wand users would be watching game guides, news on the industry, stories about their favorite games, and things like that. They're watching certain formats, an aesthetic they prefer, and a plethora of other variables come into play when you look at their world. So putting out feature ads alone or just yapping about your product isn't really going to cut it anymore because at the end of the day, I believe that every company eventually becomes or acquires a media company that integrates themselves naturally into the flow and attention of these freeways. One of my favorite examples is Haggerty and Haggerty Media. Car lovers watch interesting car stories. They don't actually watch videos about insurance, but car lovers have nice cars and need car insurance, which Haggerty sells. They'll get much more reach and loyalty to their brand by pushing great free content and then selling complementary products on the back end. So the goal here is to identify the identity of your viewer so you can speak their language, which means you can then create videos in naturally consumed formats that occasionally intertwine your product. Now, building these videos, which I'll show you next, is simpler than you think once you see the bones. Alright, so the world runs on knowledge gaps, and if placed in the right order, you'll be able to gain the attention of anyone you want. The show I'm watching right now, Chicago Fire, does this every episode in a complex way. The narrative books I like to read do this as well. But the simplest form anyone can understand is found in a scripted short form video. And you can even use it to launchpad yourself into writing longer form content because the elements are roughly the same, which is exactly what I did with our doc channel. So let's look at a short form video we did so you can see the bones of a great video. A short form video, assuming that the initial idea is solid, starts with a line or lines to make someone feel like there's something missing here that they don't know yet. Then the preceding lines are a careful dance between context and curiosity. You feed just enough curiosity lines to bring them through, and provide context when needed to make the video feel solid. Because if you have too much context and you've closed the gap early or it has sluggish pace, they're gone. Too little and it feels like you're trying to sell air and they're gone too. It's a delicate dance that gets better through reps, and there's a specific way to get better at it which I'll touch on later. Now, knowing this rough skeleton, you can place most viral content on here and it'll follow the same pattern, even with more visual content like Mr. Beast's. Of course, if you're a bit more experienced in this space, you know there's multiple ways to craft a structure, but this is a great starter lens to see the world of short form through. You can now combine your why and your who, which gives you the topics and ideas that revolve around the identity of your viewer, which then you use to craft the videos that get pushed out into the world. But building the video is one thing, and learning how to read its data after you upload to help shape your strategy is another thing entirely, which I learned the hard way. When you put out a video, the platform sends it to real people, and the numbers tell you the truth, whether you like it or not, with a few exceptions. It was always easy for me at the start to get emotional and blame the algorithm, the platform, and have hatred to the world because it didn't like my stuff. But you have to realize you're playing a game, and a game has rules. Each video platform has its preferred tendencies. Each market has people that like a certain style of content. Each medium of short, long, books, movies has a certain style of consumption. And your analytical dashboard is just communicating those variables to you. So there doesn't need to be an emotional tie to the data. Over the years, you just learn to move forward from flops and take that data to lower your chances of flopping in the future. The best advice I can give you if you're just starting out and don't know how or when to break rules is to not create for yourself, but to create for a specific platform in a specific market for a specific person. This way, you have an idea of the ceiling of views you can get based on the market size. For example, one of my clients maxed out around 13 million views a month because the market is tiny. On the other hand, another does like 30 million because the market is massive. Now, in terms of per video metrics, I only really look at swipe rate and retention because those are the metrics I can use objectively to help my team improve for the next round. Swipe rate is an indicator of how well you communicated your value in the first few seconds. And looking at retention, you can see if a new script structure worked or didn't work. Looking at your data over time is going to help refine your viewer profile and identity, which we talked about before in the who section. But after I got the hang of short form, I realized there was another level to all of this, which you'll need to know if you want to take things seriously. The last piece of the short form puzzle is what I like to call essence. Your identity as a brand, distilled down into creative elements someone can feel. For a broad example, why does Claude look and feel so much different than ChatGPT? From its marketing, UI, and brand elements. One is warm, coffee shop writer, and artist focused, almost like your creative partner, while the other feels more like a utility with a cold demeanor. Neither is bad because each company knows who they want to target. But a feeling is what you want to articulate when you decide elements like your fonts, your colors, the way your shots are framed, the light, the pacing, the feeling, your prose. You do it right and your content stops looking like everything else in the feed. Because strong positioning is more important than ever with how much content is being put out on a daily basis. Now, bringing it back to short form, the more you stick to communicating a certain feeling, the stronger the subconscious connection gets. People start to recognize you on sight. They'll give you an extra second to hear out your hook because you've given them value before. Now, if you've built pages before, you can design your essence right at launch since you already know who you are and what the landscape looks like. But if you're new, don't get paralysis deciding these elements to try and perfect it with the first video. You'll discover it as you go. A really great example of strong positioning with essence are these guys. They started out doing normal comedy skits recorded on an iPhone, which is what everybody does. So to complement their skill, they started doing things way more cinematically, and I personally feel that combination of everything really gives it a unique feel. And we covered the why, the who, anatomy, data, and essence, but tying all this together is a single exercise I do every morning to get better at creating scripted short form, and just writing in general. I wish I had a cool name for it, but I just like to call it System 250. Where I write a 250-ish word story about something I like using the basic anatomy we touched on earlier. Sometimes it gets posted online, which is what I recommend for you to do because you can get feedback pretty quick. So just create a new burner page for you to practice on and do it faced or faceless and just start writing. But sometimes it just stays in my Notion as well. This way I get to work on what I believe is the most important skill for the next decade, which is writing. There is so much more I'd like to talk about, but then this video would be like a couple hours long. But I hope you took at least one thing from today's video and will use it to improve your next project. My name's Nishayne, and I'll see you in the next one.